In 1897, Missouri Township was no more than a quiet stretch of farmland stitched together by dusty roads and weather-worn barns. At the farthest end stood a solitary cottage, its paint grayed by time and seasons. Locals called it Widow Merrick's place, a home wrapped in silence, grief, and mystery. Eliza Merrick, the widow who lived there, was once the warm heartbeat of the community. But after her beloved husband Jonathan died in a river accident, she retreated inside the walls of her home and rarely stepped beyond the porch. The only sign of life, a single window facing the dirt road, a window with lace curtains, a window Eliza rarely touched, a window locals whispered about. Because every so often that window seemed to shine, reflecting not the faces of those passing by, but strangers no one else could see. Eliza's days were quiet shadows, sunrise tea, knitting, tending her small garden. But her nights, those belonged to the window. She stood before it, candlelight flickering behind her, staring into the glass as though expecting someone. Her neighbors noticed. Children dared each other to sneak closer, claiming they saw strange figures flicker in the reflection, people not from their township, in clothing not of their time. Eliza ignored the gossip, because each time she stood in front of that window, she saw memories, and sometimes she saw faces she had never met, young, old, smiling, crying, strangers who felt achingly familiar, as though the window connected her to souls who also needed to be seen. One autumn afternoon, Eliza heard the first knock she'd gotten in months. She hesitated, smoothing her black morning dress before opening the door. It was a small boy with dust on his shoes and hunger in his eyes. He asked only for water and a place to rest. Eliza's instinct urged hospitality, something she thought she had forgotten. She made him soup, let him warm by the fireplace. Before he left, she asked gently, "Where's your family, dear?" The boy lowered his eyes. "I don't know," he whispered. Eliza's heart tightened. He thanked her, and as he walked away, she lingered at the window, watching his shrinking figure. Then, in the reflection, she saw a well-dressed couple running, calling out a name, "Samuel!" But on the road, the boy kept walking alone. That night, Eliza could not sleep. She paced to the window repeatedly, staring into it and willing the image to return. What had she seen? A future? A past? Another world entirely? Her breath caught when the reflection reappeared, this time clearer, the couple holding a small shoe, a match to the one Samuel wore. The image glowed, and then vanished. A chill traveled up Eliza's spine. She grabbed her shawl, stepped outside, and followed the path Samuel took. Her lantern swung wildly as she rushed through the dark. She found him sitting beneath an oak tree, shivering, scared, and alone. "Come back with me," she begged. "We'll find your family together." Trusting her, he agreed. And for the first time in months, Eliza felt like she had a purpose. News spread fast in a small town. The sheriff listened as Samuel described the couple from the reflection. A search party formed immediately. Within hours, they found Samuel's frantic parents on the other side of the woods. Tears flooded their reunion. Samuel clung to Eliza one last time before returning to his mother's arms. Before they left, Samuel pressed something into her hand, a tiny, smooth stone shaped like a heart. "For helping me," he whispered. Eliza watched them walk away, feeling warmth she hadn't known since Jonathan's passing. When she returned home, she stood before the window again. Tonight, it showed only her own reflection. But this time, she didn't look lonely. People began saying the widow had sight, that her windows showed truths unseen. But Eliza dismissed the talk. Inside, though, a question gnawed. Why did the window show Samuel's family? Was it chance? Or was she meant to help? She noticed something odd. The glass was old, warped, hand-blown decades before she was born. Her late husband never allowed anyone to replace it. Jonathan always said the window was special, a gift from a traveler he once helped. Eliza pressed her palm against the cool pane, whispering into the quiet, "Jonathan, are you guiding me still?" The wind answered with a soft sigh. A week later, the window glowed again. This time, it reflected a weary young man, muddy boots, torn suit jacket, carrying a suitcase heavy with burden. Moments later, there was a knock. The same man stood on her porch, shaking from exhaustion. I, I think I'm lost," he stammered. Eliza welcomed him inside. She learned his name was Charles Whitmore, a traveling salesman searching for work and a place to belong after being disowned by his family. While he ate supper, she glimpsed the window again. Charles, but standing proudly in a shop filled with clocks and customers, his own business. When she looked back, he was staring into the fire, hiding tears. "Eliza," he said, "do you believe life can still hold kindness for a man who's lost everything?" She placed a steady hand over his trembling one. "Yes," she whispered, "I truly do." Charles stayed one night but left in the morning, inspired by Eliza's encouragement. He promised to return someday and repay her kindness. After he disappeared down the road, Eliza stared through the window again. Now it reflected a calendar from 5 years ahead, 1902. Charles in a fine suit, shaking hands with customers. Success, happiness, belonging, everything he hoped for. Eliza smiled, heart full. She was beginning to understand. The window didn't show ghosts, it showed people's futures. At the moment, they needed someone to believe in them. The third person came on a stormy night, a young woman named Maribel, rain dripping from her bonnet. She looked desperate, clutching papers smeared with tears. "My fiancé," she choked. "He went to war. No letters. Months gone by. I fear the worst." Eliza guided her to a chair by the fireplace. As she poured warm tea, she glanced at the window, heart pounding. The reflection showed Maribel at a train station, smiling through joyful tears as a soldier ran into her arms. Eliza turned back toward Maribel and took her hands carefully. "He's alive," Eliza said, voice filled with conviction. "Your love is not lost." Maribel collapsed into her arms, sobbing not from sorrow but from hope. Word spread like wildfire. The widow's window, they called it, a holy thing, a miracle. People from surrounding townships traveled long distances, believing the window could change lives. Eliza's once silent home now echoed with knocking doors, cries, and prayers. Though overwhelmed, she welcomed everyone she could, because with each grateful smile, each heart rekindled. Eliza felt Jonathan smiling too, guiding her back to the world and helping her live again. But unknown to her, the window's magic carried a secret that would change her future too, a future it had yet to reveal. Despite the joy she gave others, Eliza's nights still belonged to memories of Jonathan. Some mornings she awoke reaching for him, only to touch cold sheets. One evening she saw something in the window she had never seen before, her own reflection, older, smiling, but not alone. A man's shadow stood just behind her, a hand resting gently on her shoulder, Jonathan's hand. Eliza gasped and stumbled backward, heart thundering. The window dimmed again, returning to normal. What was the window showing her? A message? A promise? Or simply a cruel trick of longing? Not everyone believed the window was divine. Reverend Garrison, a stern man who feared anything unexplained, called the window the devil's trickery. He arrived at her door unannounced. "You must stop these gatherings," he demanded. Hope that does not come from God leads people astray. Eliza responded calmly, if kindness and faith return to the hearts of those who come here, how can that be wrong? The Reverend left displeased, and as he walked away, the window flickered again. This time, it reflected the Reverend himself, kneeling in prayer with tears of regret. There was more truth in the window than he wanted to see. Weeks turned into months. The town changed in quiet, wonderful ways. A reclusive baker began greeting customers again. A shy young girl found courage to speak and sing. A broken family reunited after years of silence. Stories of hope grew like roses along cracked fences. Eliza's cottage, once the loneliest place in Missouri Township, had become its beating heart. But with every miracle came a whisper. What about Eliza's own future? Would the window ever show her happiness again? One night, a violent storm rolled through the valley. Wind howled, shutters slammed, and lightning tore across the sky. Amid the chaos, Eliza stood before the window, gripping her candle tight. The reflection glimmered, clear as daylight. She saw herself collapsing to the floor, breathless, alone. Then the image shifted, a child's hand reaching for hers, an unfamiliar girl with Jonathan's kind eyes. Eliza trembled, whispering, "What are you trying to tell me?" The storm raged on, but the window went dark. At dawn, when the sky was still gray and trembling from the storm's departure, a soft knock echoed at her door. A small girl, barely 8, soaked and shivering, stood there holding a letter tightly to her chest. "My mother. She is sick," the girl pleaded. "I didn't know where else to go." Eliza wrapped a blanket around her, heart aching with déjà vu, another lost soul. As she dried the girl's hair, Eliza glanced at the window. It reflected the girl, grown, a young woman placing flowers on a grave marked Eliza Merrick, loved by many, forgotten by none. A tear slid down Eliza's cheek. This child would one day remember her. Eliza accompanied the girl, Lily, back to her sick mother. She tended to the fevered woman with every remedy she knew. After 3 long days, the woman finally whispered a weak "thank you," and color returned to her cheeks. Before they left, Lily hugged Eliza tightly. "You're like an angel," she whispered. Eliza smiled softly. "Perhaps I'm just a window," she replied. Walking back home, she felt stronger, needed. Jonathan would be proud, she thought. The window waited, glowing faintly like a heartbeat. That night, Eliza lit her candle and stood before the window again. She expected another stranger, another life to help, but instead, she saw a funeral procession, horses pulling a simple wagon, townfolk in mourning, tears falling like rain. At the center, a coffin draped in black lace, her name etched upon it. "Eliza Merrick," she whispered, breath thin. "So, it is my time soon." But the vision continued, children laughing, businesses thriving, families embracing, the town healed. Because she lived, not feared, not forgotten, loved. Eliza sat in her rocker long after midnight, staring into the fading glow. Life had returned to her when she thought all was gone. She had loved again, not in romance, but in purpose. If death was coming, she would meet it with the same quiet grace she gave others. But she wanted one thing more: to thank Jonathan. She placed her hand on the window. "Wait for me," she whispered, "but not yet. I still have hearts to mend." And the window, for the first time, warmed beneath her palm. Weeks passed. Eliza moved slower, her breath shorter. A gentle tiredness followed everything she did. But she continued helping every soul who came. Until one spring morning, she did not rise from her bed. The town gathered outside her home, prayers and tears in the air. Inside, peacefully asleep, Eliza smiled her final smile. Hand resting on the stone Samuel gave her, the window behind her glowing softly like sunrise. Years later, the cottage still stands, the paint still worn, but flowers bloom brightly by the porch. The window? People say it still shines at dusk. Sometimes it reflects strangers, lost children, broken hearts, people desperate for hope. But those who look carefully sometimes see a woman behind them, a gentle figure in a black dress, eyes full of love, hand on their shoulder. Eliza. Her spirit remained not to haunt, but to guide. The widow with a window that reflected strangers, helped them, healed them, and in doing so, she healed herself. Because the greatest purpose one can have is to be the light in someone else's darkness.